Point of pride.
Mic check, 1, 2. Everybody got levels?
That working? Okay, where's my apple box? I gotta step on my tiptoes. Tiptoes. Hello, hello.
Added some inches to you, I
Tweak
think.
it a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
I think Shiloh gonna start.
Yep.
Where'd she go?
Right here.
Oh, hi. I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna scare you. Your print's bigger than mine. All right. Ready? Please come on in. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here today. I'm Shiloh Lafreniere. I'm the town manager here in Jay. I'd like to welcome you to our town. We're very excited that there's good news to share today. It seems the past several years, the big news coming from the town of Jay has been around shutdowns, closures, or natural disasters. So we're very pleased that that's not the topic today. Our community's been on a roller coaster ride for many years with the Androscoggin Mill, and the digester explosion in 2020 seemed to be the beginning of the end for it. We watched as machines were shut down and multi-generational paper mill employees worked their last days here. We remained hopeful that the positive attributes of the site would be enough to compel other businesses to consider this location, and we were very pleased when JGT2, which is a mouthful, purchased the property in December with the goal of redevelopment. We're looking to the future of this facility with a renewed hope, made stronger by the news here today, and we look forward to the continued support of the state of Maine, our congressional delegation, and the many others who have been working on our behalf. So thank you all for coming today. We welcome you to the town of the Jay. And with that, I'd like to thank Governor Janet Mills for her ongoing efforts and turn this over to her. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Shiloh. Thank you. Representatives of our members of Congress are here as well for this news, and it's great to be back in Jay, fairly close to where I grew up in Farmington. I remember after high school, my classmates, many of them built their lives around good paying jobs at this mill, jobs that generations of Maine people had held, manufacturing quality paper products that are used around the world. I still remember how I felt in April of 2020 when I learned there'd been a digester explosion. Although I was deeply relieved that no one was injured, I was concerned for the livelihoods of the workers and for the future of the mill itself and for this very community. And I made every state resource available to the mill, to its workers and their families, and knowing how important this facility is to Franklin County and to Western Maine. Although I told the mill owners I'd do everything in my power to help, the previous owners said really wasn't much we could do. And they made the decision last year to finally stop operations at the mill. I was deeply disappointed. And so I directed my Labor Commissioner, Laura Fortman, and Economic Development Commissioner, Heather Johnson, who's here? Somewhere there. To do everything they could to support the workers and their families. Together, we redoubled our efforts to sustain the forest products industry and the thousands of jobs it provides to people across Maine. After months of work with potential investors to identify development challenges and solutions, I am pleased to stand here today with John Godfrey of Godfrey Forest Products to announce one significant project that will be part of the Androscoggin paper mill site redevelopment. Mr. Godfrey was born in Bangor, the former lumber capital of the world, and he previously worked for Great Northern Paper Company Millinocket. While there, Mr. Godfrey studied Oriented Strand Board, or OSB, which he has a sample of here. That's a product that can turn a wide variety of trees into alternatives to plywood. Mr. Godfrey and his company have since developed, financed, and constructed several OSB mills across North America and Europe, including the very successful LP Holton facility in New Limerick. And today we celebrate the news that Godfrey Forest Products is officially leasing land here at the Androscoggin paper mill site, with plans to create a dedicated OSB production site. When construction is completed in about 18 to 24 months, this project is expected to create 125 jobs, in addition to the construction jobs. Other developers are also exploring sites on this projects on this mill site with additional job prospects, and I'm excited about the potential for greater local economic development here in Jay. Through our Forest Recovery Initiative, my administration has invested in projects that create new wood-based products, materials to diversify our forest products sector and meet the growing global demand for sustainable materials. Today is another example of those forward-looking projects funded by my administration that are restoring manufacturing jobs, revitalizing local economies, and renewing hope in former mill towns across Maine. While there's plenty of work ahead, today's announcement is an important milestone on the road to a new future, a future for this historic mill and progress in creating stronger, more diverse forest products sector in Maine. I'm very excited about this new enterprise and will be following John's progress along with the citizens of Jay in the coming months as this project brings hope and opportunity again back to Western Maine. Thank you. And I'd like to ask, I notice Representative Sheila Lyman is here and Senator Lisa Kime. I think you might want to say a few words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good afternoon. Today is such a good day in Jay, Maine. Seeing the paper mill go silent hit us all really hard. The impact was felt all across our community. The loggers, the truckers, the hardware store, the corner store. This mill here fed and clothed my own family for generations. My grandfather, Harlan Marble, worked here. My father, Peter Marble, had a career here at this mill. And then my husband, Blue, also got his start here at this mill as an intern. And I remember when he brought home his first paycheck and we learned there was such a thing as time and a half. I thought, we have struck a gold mine. The future is certainly bright. Wow, look at all this money. So we are paper makers. The people in this community, it's part of who we are. We have made good lives and good living off from forest products. And today, Jay, we find out, is going to be a mill town once again. And I am so proud and thankful to be here as part of that announcement. When I first met John Godfrey and learned of his plan, I felt hope. And it was very similar to that first feeling of the paycheck that Blue brought home. The future is bright and we have someplace we're going that looks good and it's hopeful. What John, the production that's going to be here is a future and forward-looking product. It's something that we can build our lives on once again. And for that, I want to say thank you to Mr. Godfrey for this breath of life that our community needs. It's a revitalization. I thank him for his investment in us, and I know that with open arms, we are going to be working side by side with him because his success is our success. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Godfrey.
Good job. Mr. Godfrey.
Thank you. Well, at age 75, I might have elected to retire, but it is so much fun building OSB mills that I thought, why not one more round?
Yeah.
And I have to say, in April of 2020, when I, like so many others, learned of the pulp mill explosion, you'll forgive me, but I saw an opportunity. And this mill, when running, consumed about 2 million tons a year of principally pine pulpwood. And OSB, of which you can see an example here, OSB has made its way in largely replacing plywood in residential construction because it can use trees of most any size and most any species, and it takes the material that nobody else wants. And from one day to the next here in Jay, 2 million tons of wood went from being categorized as wanted to unwanted. So at that point, I took a look around the area, and it may not be widely known, but when International Paper built this mill in 1965, they actually bought 2 sites, this one and one in Livermore Falls. And so I took an option on the site in Livermore Falls and started to work on that. A bit problematical, a greenfield site with certain environmental and wetlands issues, but with the help of particularly Commissioner Johnson, we knew we could make that work. And then Pixel up and announced they were going to close down altogether. Well, I saw another opportunity, and that was to use a more or less ready-made site. It's flat, it has utilities, it has railroad tracks. So for the purposes of an OSB mill, this is a great location. It's raw material, and its proximity to the Northeast market for building materials is just great. So we have a bit of a road ahead of us. We are in the process now, having just signed a purchase and sale agreement on an area of about 100 acres. We'll now proceed to get the necessary environmental permits. Our process has a modest amount of air emissions, way less than a pulp mill. It has no liquid effluent. Paper mills are all about the treatment lagoons you'll see here and the 20 or 30 million gallons a day of water that go into the Androscoggin. We have none of that. We will need a typical site permit. All of that will take at least a year. And at that point, we can order our equipment once we have permission to use it or to install it. We can order our equipment, and the equipment is highly specialized. It's made by only a few manufacturers, largely in Germany. And depending on their delivery schedules, we would hope to get the equipment in about a year, and it takes 6 or 8 months to install it. So all going well, we're looking at 2.5 years to the first flake being produced in the mill. I did something somewhat similar to this in Miramichi, New Brunswick. I bought a defunct particle board mill, and we used an old site there and created a new OSB mill. And on the occasion of the first flake in Miramichi was made, believe it or not, by King Charles. Then the Prince of Wales happened to be in New Brunswick, and he came by. And so, Governor, whether or not you are in office when this is done, I want you to come and make the first flake.
All right, all right.
So that's it. This is a highly logical. It's just a highly logical facility to go here. Maine is devoid of pulp mills now. When I was young, there were 7 operating pulp mills on the Penobscot River. I worked in one of them in Lincoln for 2 summers, and now there are none. So the amount of wood available is considerable, and the way to turn Maine's forest resource uh, into something useful for the world, it's undergoing a transition. It's going from pulp to a building material. And it's timely because our building material is the ultimate uh, uh, storage of carbon from the atmosphere. There's there's much talk and discussion, and everybody knows that trees remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, but it's only temporary. They convert it to cellulose, and if that cellulose is made into paper, or or if it's made into paper, it's eventually going to go to a landfill. If it's made into a building material, and gets put into a building that can last 100 or 200 years, then it's locked up for good, more or less. So, so not only are we doing the right thing, we think, by the Maine forest, and by the town of Jay, but also we're doing the right thing for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Godfrey. Thank you very much. Yeah, any questions?
Mr. Godfrey, can you tell us what this space will look like once construction in this transformation?
Largely, if you look at the building here that says Pixel on it, and just draw a line right along the edge of that building, everything this side will be gone. And that's where our facility will go, where we're standing. I think probably where we're standing right here will be the finishing line, where we take the panels are made initially in a huge size, and then we cut them up into 4x8s or 4x9s or 4x10s, whatever the market wants. And that's about where we're standing. Our building will extend, probably almost to the far light pole, straight. This kind of greenish colored, and it will go from here almost to the road. It's about 300,000 square feet under roof.
Mr. Godfrey, obviously you can find OSB at some of the largest, home improvement stores, Lowe's, Home Depot, so on and so forth. You can find them in local hardware stores as well. Do you have an idea on where your OSB production is going to go?
Yeah, it will go, principally, it will go throughout the Northeast. And those are our customers that you've just mentioned. And we will have a considerable transportation advantage in this area. This area is somewhat regionally underserved. There are mills in North Carolina, West Virginia. So if you go into a Lowe's in suburban Boston, you'll find Southern Yellow Pine OSB from Georgia Pacific in North Carolina. And Maine is one step ahead of the South. The South uses Southern Yellow Pine as its raw material because that's what they have. It's considerably denser and wetter than Eastern White Pine. So those boards are heavier, so they're less desirable to the customer and more expensive to ship. So we would have the main raw material has an advantage in that respect.
If people used to work in this facility, maybe another mill in the area, and they want to work in your new facility, what kind of, training updates will they need? How transferable are those skills?
I'll tell you what is transferable and what's remarkable here, and what is a resource is as Senator Keim described, the attitude of coming to work in a factory, shift work, and understanding the operation of machinery. And the machinery is different, to be sure, but anybody who can operate a paper machine, particularly a modern one, would be a highly desirable employee for an OSB mill. And frankly, I just wish I could hire them all tomorrow. Of course, we can't do that, but this is a huge problem in locating an OSB mill. Generally, that the OSB mills have to go where the trees are, and there are examples like high-level Alberta, which is maybe 50 or 60 miles south of the border of the Northwest Territories. This is a huge OSB mill surrounded by a forest of aspen. And it's all great, except they can't get anybody to work there because it is so remote. And it's the same in randomly, if you go throughout the South, the companies that have built mills in the South have had a hard time in a rural area that has no history, no culture of working in a factory like this. It's hard to develop that. Well, that's here. And that was, I benefited from that as well in New Brunswick, where we took over an old particle board mill. And what we found was that people came back to Miramichi that it had to go all kinds of places in order to find work. So I hope the same thing will happen here, and I rather expect it will. I'm coming back to Maine. Why can't everybody else?
One more question. Do you have any idea on what the total investment for your company would be coming here to Jay?
Yeah, I can't say a specific number at the moment because we're still negotiating with a bunch of equipment vendors, but it's easily into the hundreds of millions. And the first million, by the way, has come from the Maine Technology Institute. That has been very helpful to us in some of the initial development work. And we're very, very grateful for that.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Rich, you still there?
Is that your magazine?
That was the governor.